The end of another day. I've arrived in Wentworth, where the Darling and Murray rivers meet. When I was in Clooncarry last night, I went to the pub to see if I could just talk to the locals, and there's only about 69 residents there. They asked where I was from, and I said Wollongong. They said, "Oh, Sydney way. Oh, geez. We don't even know what goes on there." Wouldn't have a clue. They feel much more connected to Adelaide and Melbourne because those two capital cities are much closer. There's signage everywhere that talks about the history attached to the river, the explorers who came out here, the towns that were established, the ports, the graziers, the people who did it tough, who walked for hundreds of miles to establish their property, the conflicts with Aboriginals, the lack of understanding of Aboriginals. Menindee was the place that totally did my head in. I went to the Water Authority there to get some information about the management of water, and they gave me this ream of photocopied material. It describes how the lakes and the water is managed. The information is so incredibly technical because they have an entirely sort of technical approach to water, where water can flow in this lake and they capture it and it can't flow out and they shut it off, and not allowing the natural cycle of drought and flood to occur. It seems that with these floodplains and lakes, for the ecosystem, it's just as important that they're dry sometimes as they're wet. I was talking to the man at the caravan park today, the owner, and he said, "Gee, you're lucky you came at this time. There's actually water." They had more rain in a day than they'd had in 2 years recently. He said it's really green now. There was just nothing before. Everything dead or dying. Things have come back to life now. Here's my feet. I'm right on the point of this long, thin peninsula of beautiful wooded land, and it marks the exact point where the Darling and the Murray meet. This yellowy, muddy Darling River, and then over on the right, I guess slightly clearer, greener waters of the Murray.
And I was born in a hotel because there was a big storm come and blew the roof off the hospital. And when I tell that to my grandchildren, they say, "Nana, born in a pub." But I'm a teetotaler. I never drank in my life. Mum and Dad were seasonal workers. We spent most of our time in the Riverland. Orange picking and pruning, grape picking. See, this is a multicultural area here where they grew a lot of fruit, and so there was always plenty of work around. Many years ago, the river was that clear, you could see the weeds. Now, there's so much muck coming down and so much muck going back with all the fruit growers, with all their water from the block runs back into the river. We got the rubbish down here, and as you go further, like to the Murray mouth, well, then it closed. If the river would have dried up completely, we would have been in serious trouble. People pulled all their fruit trees out, their grapevines, their orange trees, because there was no water. You know, the people, that's their livelihood in this riverland. And a lot of them are like this lady here, elderly. So what they had to do to survive, they had to pull their fruit trees out before the government will give them money, but they were never allowed to grow anything on that land again. But the river always looked after us. We can always go and get a feed, even if there's a drought there, because we know how to survive. We've been surviving for 40,000 years, and we know how to find the food, you know, and the bush tucker and say the yabbies, and the frogs, they will go down in the mud and they'll wait for that river to come up. So they will survive. The river will always nurture them. We might have a drought, but in the end, the water will come. I say let nature take its course. That'll all clear out and wash out and open the Murray mouth, and it's been doing it for generations.
Last summer was quite mild. The summer before and the one before that, we had weeks of 40 plus. Just lay low, and then we go down to the river, you know, when the sun goes down. It happens a bit more now that those hot days are coming up in November, and also May is a bit warmer as well. I believe that climate change is a contributing factor. I think that, you know, there is so much happening in the world at the hands of humans that these erratic weather patterns that are happening are going to be part of the future. We own a fruit property. All you can do is look at the patterns that are happening and try and work around them. I guess that's kind of the nature of farming anyway. If it gets really bad, looking at what crops are just not working with the weather patterns here, and looking at different forms of farming, even if it's solar farming, not food farming. And in South Australia, I think the hard thing was that the irrigators here are among the most efficient in the country and the world. The people that live here love the river as well. So that was what the people downstream learnt about the people upstream, is that there's the same sense of loss if we lose this river. You know that a river dies from its mouth and it goes back up. That's how a river dies. It gradually creeps back up into the system. So, you know, the people at the end are seeing the worst things first. And if the people upstream aren't responding to that, it seems futile. You're not worried just about yourself, but you're worried about a whole community. You're worried about your natural environment. You're worried about, you know, the flora and the fauna in that environment. So there's quite a weight that goes with seeing that every day.
When the rains came, how did that make you feel?
It was re-energising to just see a river looking healthier, and, you know, and things have come to life, like the bird life's amazing. When all the waters were coming down, it was great to see everything just bursting.
So where did it come from?
Well, Queensland, New South Wales, that's the area where it sort of collects first and then comes downstream. But many people said it would be years before it would return to this level, but in 10 months it turned around and came back. So Mother Nature took care of that.
Does it feel good to
Oh,
be?
absolutely wonderful, yeah.
What was it like when the river was right down?
Pretty scary because you didn't know, what the future was. And, with the drought, land all drying up, and the river system itself, well, like this little town here has no infrastructure for water, so they put some pipelines in down to Meningie and that to give them fresh water, because the lakes down there were very, very salty, you know. There was all bare ground out there in front of that old landing.
That's where your education lies, with your natural environment. So, you know, if it strikes a chord in you as a young child, it's going to stay with you because you're not separated from it. You know, you go out and you're part of that river system and you're watching the whole ecology there. It's also part of your memories of growing up in terms of the fun, just plain simple fun and togetherness with family and friends. There has been rain and the river's been up, but we could well be back into a drought again. You know, it's not over, so we still need to be careful, and we still need to find that balance between helping communities on the river to be commercial but also saving that river because it's so important.